Hey y'all, welcome to the hands-off demonstration from Torr Kitchen. I'm going to be running the small system today with about 750 milliliters of wash loaded into the loading vessel there. We're going to be, like I said, 750 milliliters, full vacuum. We're going to set the temp of the cooker at 125. It's going to operate inside around 95 in the loading vessel there. It'll take about 40 minutes. I'm going to run that continuous counter. So we set the pump on, we let it start pumping down, close the valve on the three-way, so now it's a closed loop system, and we just wait. It should only take about a minute and a half for this thing to pump down, and then that's all the pump's going to run. As soon as that part is done, just the initial phase, then it's just silent from then on. And I'm going to turn there's a little bit of music playing in the background. I don't want to get busted for copyright infringement, so I'm going to turn the sound off as soon as we turn the pump off, just so you can see how quiet it is. But you can see there, right, the boiling's coming to a really nice roiling boil already in less than a minute from starting the pump. It's starting to kick off a bunch of vapor. And you probably saw me go ahead and I touched the setting before it started boiling on the cooker. That's when I was setting the temperature to 125. So 125 is a pretty good temperature on this particular cooker. You can see that boil's really going, kicking off a lot of vapor. So I'm going to shut off the ball valve on the receiving vessel, turn off the pump, and there it is. That pump and all of that is now no longer going to be running for the remainder of the process, and it's just going to run in silence as a closed loop system. One thing I wanted to point out, well, a couple of things. One, I've got that counter there that I put in, so because at points here it's going to take about 40 minutes, so we shortened the video up so we could just kind of speed through some of the boring parts that's just sitting here and doing this, because you don't want to just stare at a boiling pot, right? So that counter is going to allow us to watch, like in real time, how much time has elapsed, and so you can keep track and make sure I'm not cheating. So it's pretty cool, pretty fast. The counter's there. I wanted to mention about setting that cooker. So you probably saw in that introduction, there's a difference between the cooker's getting set at 125, but it's actually going to run at around 95, which means that the 125 temperature that's set on the cooker doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen inside the vessel. That's just an approximation of how much energy is being put into the bottom of that pot. There's no real measure. It's just an algorithm that says, okay, if you use this with water under normal ambient atmosphere, it should end up being about 125. So that's how much energy is going in. But when we put it under vacuum, and you can see there, I'm just checking the ambient temperature in the room is about 80 degrees, just so we could see what the ambient temperature looks like. So as that heat is getting put in at approximately like what would end up being 125 under normal cooking, is throwing that heat in. But when we pull the vacuum and make that boil, the energy that's going into the bottom is being released as vapor, right? And that's what's going through the condenser and then condensing later into condensate. So that release of the vapor is what takes and releases that energy. So what's going on inside under vacuum as we lower the boiling point of the ethanol and release that energy isn't necessarily going to be the same temperature as what we're approximately putting in. That's why when we put in more, it'll boil more vigorously and create more vapor, and that's that balance that we watch to not overtake the capacity of the condenser. And you see how complicated I'm getting in my talking? It's not really that complicated, but that's exactly why I wanted to do this hands-off video, because normally when I'm doing the demonstration, I'm touching things, I'm moving things, I'm trying to explain things. But with this, I wanted it to just sit there and run, so people that get kind of maybe overwhelmed or intimidated about saying, oh, this is too difficult for me to do, or that sounds so difficult. It's actually not. You put it there, you pump the vacuum down, turn the pump off. That takes about 1.5 minutes. You set the heat. It takes you 5 seconds, and then it just runs itself in silence. So that's why I'm running it like this. And I also have to apologize. I don't know what happened, but my hair and makeup people didn't show up again, so I'm just kind of stuck with this. Hope you don't mind. And that while I'm just kind of sitting here rambling throughout the video, I'm going to try to explain a few things in between while things are happening in the video. So you can see that vapor is moving. It's going through the condenser, and on the far reclaim you can kind of see it trickling in already. You can see it shimmering and kind of off the glass, so it's already moving through. And we're at about, you can see with the timer counter, we've been going fast, so we're coming up on the 30-minute mark. So after 30 minutes, I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna move it around, I'm just gonna see how much is left. Shake that ice bucket to make sure that ice is still nicely in contact with the coil, because what happens is as it heats, sometimes it makes air pockets, and even though there's water in there, sometimes that gets like what is kind of like a laminar layer, right, of warm water instead of the colder water. So jiggle it around so it settles at around 30 minutes, because the first part is a little bit slow because you've got a lot of alcohol and a lot of movement and a lot of vapor creation getting released and then reducing in volume. But as we get to that lower volume toward the end with that much surface area, things progress quite quickly. So you want to really watch at the end. And that's why I just did that. That you could see in the video there. Kind of the really neat thing that's under development right now. In a year or two, it won't be new, but so I'm going to take a look again, just check and see how that volume's doing. But the cool thing that's not going to be so new in a couple years, but it's really new right now, is that flow port that I've got on the top of the loading vessel there. And you see I just snuck in a finger and hit that. I just turned it up. I went from 125 to 140 on the cooker, just because at the end there's not as much volume of ethanol in there. So if I would have turned that temperature up earlier, there would have been much more vapor creation. Now there's a lot more headspace, less volume, so I can kick that vapor or the temperature up a little bit to hasten, just speed it up a little bit. It was a hands-off demo, but I hand-on there, which I shouldn't have, but I did. So I just turned it up just to speed up the end a little bit, because I'm paying attention to it. Could have left it, but I didn't. So we're getting pretty close now. We're running into, it's about 36 minutes. So now I'm going to really start paying attention to the very bottom part. You can see in the video that it's actually quite low. And what I'm looking for there is basically the viscosity. So where am I going to end it? Do I want to end it when there's still more ethanol in it and it's really loose and easy to pour out? That's kind of how I like to do it, because otherwise that can change really quick. It takes a little longer to post-process and let the ethanol evaporate off the mat. But that's what the warming mat's for. A little bit of patience for quality. If you don't want to have that patience and you want it done quicker, you can run it down to a thicker oil, but then once you open it, you got to be really quick while it's warm. Get in there with a spatula and get the oil out. You can see I'm topping it off at 40 minutes. Well, we're at 37 minutes. But actually, the video started a little early, so we're probably at like 32 minutes or whatever. At this point, you don't really need to top it off with more ice, but because I had some handy, I did, because it's going to be done fairly quickly. I guess I just, at the top is the hottest before it cools, so I like to keep that top cool. Didn't need to. There I'm just checking that the vapor temperature is around 95, which is where we expected it. The room's heated up a bit. It looked like it was like around 80. Did that say 87? I didn't even see it. But it was a pretty hot day out. which is the cool thing about the system. And running it with that cooler and ice, you can run it in a warmer environment with where other apparatuses and other equipment on the market, you can't run at those kind of temperatures. They just don't perform. And this thing still just absolutely cranks at those temperatures. And then at the end, you see me just kind of taking it and moving it and paying close attention, because that's where you really want to watch. Pump's still not running, still closed system. Nowhere for any of that vapor to go. It's all trapped in between the loading vessel and the recovery vessel and cooling in between, so there's nowhere for it to escape. You're reclaiming all of it, and it's a pretty cool little system. So going back to that vapor port, that blue vapor port that's sitting on the loading vessel there, that is actually the new thing that we're going to be launching here in a month or two, in two sizes: the 3/8 that comes off the loading vessel, and then I'll have the quarter for the quarter OD tubing version as well, to go on to either the recovery vessel, but also if you just want to use it for post-processing and stuff. And the super cool thing about it is, you see my Viper chair? You ever heard of Viper chairs? A little snippet for them. These things are awesome. Love them. But the cool thing about the there, I'm just checking on the video again. The cool thing about it is you have them on both ends of this, and then the lids are totally independent. You don't have to worry about wrestling with the lids being connected to the tubing. So I'm really excited about that. And we're going to be landing them very shortly. I've been working on them for a long time now. They're patent pending. And my computer just went to sleep, so I had to wake it up again. And that's where we are. So it's just past 40 minutes on the timer there. This should be coming to a close pretty quick, and you can see inside the loading vessel there how shallow it is, because there's no travel on those bubbles. It's just really going at it. So this is where we want to watch it. And then check it out at the end. The other cool thing about the flow port there, the vacuum brake is actually built into a ridge around the edge, so you can just use your finger instead of having to mess with a ball valve or an extra. Both the vacuum relief and vacuum delivery and the flow dynamics are all in one little silicone cap, which is really super cool. And you'll see when I turn it off here in a second, I'm just going to break the vacuum by slowly lifting the edge and controlling that vacuum release. I think you guys are really going to like this thing. Wish I knew some good jokes. Oh, there I go, checking it again. Must be toward the end. Did you see? You can see when I turn it, when I lift it, when I look at it, you can see how shallow it is, and it's really, really shallow. So that's probably the earliest you want to take it out, something like that, and pour it out. Then it cleans up really easily. And that's where the part where you want to really start watching it now, right? And going back to the flow port, so you can see the flow port on this one, and then the straight hardware on the recovery vessel. One's not necessarily better than the other. It's kind of depending on how you're going to use it. The traditional hardware, which I'll still carry and I'll still use and I still like a lot, is super reliable. You never have to worry about it failing. You can clamp down a hose clamp on it really well. So they'll hold vacuum forever, and they're pretty much indestructible. So it's not necessarily that the flow port is the only solution. It's just for our use case in many cases, especially on the culinary side. When I move to, we're also going to move to and have these single hole versions as well. So we can just pop on, You can have a quick release here, and then this can go in the fridge or do whatever you need, or you can use it just as a post-processing vacuum chamber. So some cool things coming. Oh, and don't tell anybody, it's a secret, but got a Buckner solution coming pretty soon too. Working diligently on it. And I don't know if any of you guys caught the other Easter egg in the back. You see that air-driven condenser back there? Oop. I just checked it. I'm getting to the end. Look at my fingers close. I'm getting antsy. I might do something. I'm thinking closely. I'm watching. Is he going to do it? Oh, the thumbs. Oh, he stopped it. Okay, I guess that's where I'm going to stop it. So now I'm going to just pull the edge off and break the vacuum very slowly right there. That's so cool. Now it's off. See, it's not connected anymore. So now that lid's free. That's the cool part. So ethanol, what I'm doing right now is I'm just running the pump a little bit to pull the ethanol through the condenser, so it's not just sitting in the condenser, so when you pick it up, ethanol comes out. So run the pump a little bit, let the air flow through that open flow port into the recovery vessel. That way you clear everything and you don't end up dropping ethanol. I'm going to take the lid off. See how it's nice and free, no hose connected? How cool is that? I'm going to pull over my handy dandy silicone mat that I've got boated there and ready. And I see that's quite loose. I could have run it a bit longer, but it's just so easy to do this, and then I just let it set overnight with a fan over it, and it dries out pretty good. And there you go. It looks a little greener than it is because of that green edging on the mat, which is fine, but I also messed around with the other stuff and got a little tiny bit green maybe. But anyway, Torr Kitchen, y'all. Support us, call us, email us. Love you. Talk to you later. Bye.